Is Max Verstappen a great champion or a great hype? In this video, we'll try to answer this question. But before we do that, let's briefly remind ourselves of Verstappen's history in Formula One. Max Verstappen entered Formula One in 2015 as its youngest ever driver, joining Red Bull's junior team, Toro Rosso, after getting beaten by Esteban Ocon in the 2014 Formula 3 European Championship. In 2016, he replaced Daniel Kvyat in the senior team after only 4 races that season and won the Spanish Grand Prix on his debut for Red Bull, becoming the youngest driver to win a race in F1. At the end of the 2023 season, he's become a 3-time world champion, breaking many records along the way. So, is Max Verstappen a great champion or a great hype? Let's get started. It's long been rumored, since Daniel Ricciardo decided to leave the Red Bull team in 2018, that Red Bull have been designing the car to cater to Max's driving style. There may be some truth to this, as when Pierre Gasly was promoted from the junior team to replace the departed Ricciardo at Red Bull, he complained that the car was extremely difficult to drive. Gasly's complaints about the handling of the Red Bull car were so bad that he even asked the engineers to change the setup to suit his own driving style. His request was rejected, and he was told to drive it like Max does. If you're a fan of Formula One, then you'll know that Gasly's time in the senior team was short-lived and ended after just 10 races in 2019, after which he swapped seats with rookie Alex Albon and returned to the Toro Rosso team he drove for in the previous season. And what was Alex Albon's take on the Red Bull car? Pretty much the same as Pierre Gasly's, difficult to handle and too oversteery. But somehow, only Verstappen could handle this. Alex Albon had a similar torrid time as Gasly did at Red Bull, but his tenure there lasted slightly longer, the whole of the 2020 Formula One season. Sergio Perez, having been saved from Formula One retirement by Red Bull at the end of the 2020 season, became Max Verstappen's teammate at Red Bull for the 2021 campaign. Again, Perez had the same complaint about the Red Bull car, its handling and too oversteery. But somehow, again, only Verstappen could handle it. This shouldn't be much of a surprise, as he'd been driving the car for years now. So what's the main takeaway from the complaints of Max's teammates? It's not Verstappen's speed. It's the handling of the Red Bull. They all applaud Max's ability to drive the car better than they can. But maybe they should be a bit more cynical, as Red Bull has history of hampering one of their drivers to favor the other. Just take a look at this clip from Jake Humphrey's High Performance podcast, where Mark Webber talks about being informed by an engineer that his engine was being turned down, on Red Bull's orders, in races where he would close in on Vettel.
Was certainly extremely challenging, and I think there was a lot of lessons from that, and there was some blowback. There were some people that left, people that weren't happy with some of how the things were handled, and tensions went, very, very high.
I think for people that are listening to this that are not Formula One aficionados, right, let's just make it clear the sort of things that were going on. A member of the engine department told you that when you're behind Sebastian, the engines get turned down, right? So you can't have a crack at him. You only communicate really with your own engineer on the pit wall, Kyron it was, who worked with you. And you ended up talking in code so that if it was a message from the team, you knew it wasn't that's true, isn't it? You knew it wasn't a message from Kyron. In other words, if it was like a team order, he didn't want to be the one to deliver that message.
Okay, there you have it. So, contrary to what some fans and pundits have been saying, Red Bull are capable of sabotaging one of their drivers. If Red Bull could sabotage Mark Webber, what do you think they'd be willing to do to Sergio Perez, whose whole purpose for being at the team is to support Verstappen, not challenge him? Anyway, after putting in the work and time during the summer break to get to grips with the handling of the Red Bull car, Checo showed that he could match Max for race pace in the early rounds of the 2023 season. In the second race of the season in Jeddah, after Max swiftly dispatched of Russell and Alonso after a safety car restart, he then set about chasing down Perez, who was about 5 seconds up the road. Max was clocking fastest lap times, but what surprised everyone was that Checo was matching him, despite both drivers being on fresh rubber that had done the same amount of laps. We then got to see Max and Checo go head-to-head again at the Baku Grand Prix. After Max and then Checo overtook pole sitter Charles Leclerc on laps 4 and 6 respectively, Checo was able to close a 1.4-second deficit to Max Verstappen, setting fastest laps while doing so, to get within his DRS by lap 9. Red Bull then took an opportunity in lap 10 to pit Max Verstappen for new tires under a virtual safety car. This effectively handed Checo the lead after he pitted for new tires under a full safety car shortly afterwards. After the restart on lap 13, roles were essentially reversed, with Checo in the lead and Max Verstappen 1.2 seconds behind after he had dispatched of Charles Leclerc within the first 3 corners. Most people expected Verstappen to make short work of Sergio Perez, but this never materialized, and instead Checo kept Max out of his DRS for the remainder of the race, even extending his lead to 3.8 seconds by lap 40 of 56. After Checo took the checkered flag, thoroughly trouncing Verstappen in the process, most fans were surprised by the cold and emotionless responses towards Checo from the Red Bull team, especially the senior team members. Eagle-eyed fans also noticed that the Red Bull pit wall all looked like they'd been sucking on lemons when Sergio crossed the line in first place. Had Checo just inadvertently exposed Red Bull's main driver and their cash cow? And was this what things would look like for the rest of the season, Verstappen and Perez having close battles for race wins? Well, if fans thought they were going to see a good battle for the World Championship, they were soon to be disappointed, as from the next race in Miami, Perez would begin to have terrible troubles with his car. The pace he showed in the first 4 races of the season, where he was matching Max's lap times, would no longer be reproducible, and Verstappen was able to easily clinch his 3rd World Drivers' Championship by the end of the season. Some would say Max was able to unlock something in the car after playing around with some settings during the Baku race. I think this is utterly ridiculous, by the way. Others would say that Red Bull put more front end in the car as the season went on, and this suited Max's driving style. If this is the case, given that Red Bull were miles ahead of everyone else at the start of the season, wouldn't this be Red Bull putting their thumb on the scales to advantage Max at the expense of Perez? No one will ever know what truly happened. But what I have shown is that Red Bull have form of sabotaging one of their drivers. So can we say whether Max Verstappen is a great champion or a great hype? I'm leaning towards a great hype at the moment. Even Sebastian Vettel can't quite bring himself to call Max a great. This is him talking about Hamilton and Verstappen. Here, take a look.
That's the beauty of it. There's not one formula, one recipe to success. Lewis has demonstrated he's the best there's ever been. Max is demonstrating at the minute that he's pulling off something that's never been done before.
Maybe he knows something we don't about what's going on in Red Bull. For me, unless Max proves himself in another team that doesn't belong to the Red Bull family, and against a competent driver as a teammate, then I don't think he should be regarded as one of the greats. What do you think? Thanks for watching. Help support this channel by sharing this video and hitting the like and subscribe buttons below. Till next time.